guys, welcome back to the final part of my early fall plant tour. This is going to be the plants I keep in the kitchen and the bathroom, and I'm going to start right here in the kitchen window. This is where the majority of the plants are going to be. This is the north side of my house, and this here is like a skylight window, so I can actually get some good light on this end of the house. And I'm going to start right up here at the top. This is my orchid cactus, and this is one that I had, and I almost rotted it by putting it in the basement for the winter with the other cacti, but luckily I saved it in time and I restarted the whole thing from cuttings, and I'm about back to where I was before I lost it. So that guy's making some good progress. Now down here is my black pagoda lipstick plant. This is another one of my favorite plants. I found this guy in Terrain, and I had put this on my plant wish list. I remember seeing it in a video. I believe it was Kaylee Ellen's video. She had one of her tours and she had this plant in it. And I just thought that the underside of the leaves was so neat. It's almost like a leopard print, and it's green and purple. It's just so pretty. So I put this on my list, and then I ended up seeing it at Terrain, and I found it for a decent price. And this guy has grown so much. It does bloom, but the blooms on this are not, they're not why you buy the plant. You buy it for the foliage. Now going down to this bottom shelf here, this is pretty much, this section is all like epiphytes, and they are one of my favorite types of plants. So that's kind of like the ripsalis, the Christmas cactus, ones like that, the orchid cactus. They're basically plants that in nature, if you're not familiar, they would grow on other plants. So they would grow, like, for lack of a better word, like in the crotch of the tree, where like debris would fall, they would root there, and that's where they would live. So they like a lot of bark in the soil, but other than that, they're pretty easy plants to care for. This Christmas cactus was one of my very first plant purchases. When I first started getting into plants, now it's been over like 2 or 3 years, I went to IKEA because they have a lot of plants, and when you're first getting into it, it's a good place to start. And I got him in one of those small pots, and this guy has grown so much. And this one blooms for me pretty much every year. But I don't know, the shapes of it, it's kind of neat. It almost looks like crabs, I think, you know, like little like pinchers. But yeah, I love him. And then here's another one that I ended up picking up at Terrain. So the Terrain that I end up going to is the one in Westport, Connecticut. I live probably like an hour and a half away, so it's not like a trip that I do for that. But when we go up to the Goodwill outlet, I always make a stop there to see if there's anything new or fun. So this is my rickrack cactus, and I had wanted one of these for a while too when I found it there. This is some cuttings of a Christmas cactus, and these came from the pool room of a hotel that we had stayed at, so it's kind of like a memory associated with the trip. And then here is a ton of ripsalis with a few other plants, so I'll show you. This one here is a Hoya linearis, and it's getting some new growth because I just trimmed it the other day to repropagate. This is one that I had a really rough start with. I picked up some cuttings on eBay, and I figured, like my other Hoyas, it's going to want to dry out completely, but this is one that kind of doesn't. It wants to stay a little bit damp, and I killed a very big portion of the cuttings. I had, I think, 3 or 4 strands, and this is all it was left with. So as long as I can keep going at the rate I'm going at and taking cuttings, I will be able to have, I think I'll be able to keep it going. So fingers crossed for that guy. And then up there is the string of pearls. This used to be in my dining room, but I feel like it was getting too much sun, and there was just like no growth. You can see there like bald patches, and that fungus gnat is going to drive me crazy in the background. But it was just getting bald patches, and I remember that when I first brought it home, this was the only window I ever put plants in when I first started, and this was literally my very first plant. I saw them on Pinterest, and I asked my mom when she went on vacation, there's none around here, if you find one, can you bring it home? So she brought home like a little, like maybe like a 3-inch pot, like the tiny nursery pots. And when I first had it, I had it out here in the kitchen, and it had actually new growth, and it was doing good. And then I thought, you know what, it's a succulent, let's give it more sun, and it just kind of stalled the growth. it comes in super tiny, and actually some places are missing it. So I repotted it recently, moved it back out here, and we're kind of gonna see, fingers crossed, if this can maybe jumpstart it and get it going better. So now on to all the Ripsalis. This one up here, as I believe it's a Bacifera, and it might be Bacifera horrida because it's kind of like the chunky one. Down here are my two newest Ripsalis. And this one here, I don't know if it's also a Bacifera, I'm not sure. If anybody knows, you know, drop a comment and let me know. The one next to it is Drunkard's Dream, which I tried to get originally. This one, I believe, was supposed to be Drunkard's Dream from a Walmart order I picked up. It was like walmart.com, so it comes from somewhere else. I'm not gonna like do any names, but clearly not a Drunkard's Dream because none of them are bottle shaped. Where this one, I thought maybe it would just take time, but apparently no. So you can see like the little segments are almost like upside down bottles, which is how it gets its name. And then up here, I believe this one is the Ripsalis serioscula, which is the coral cactus. And then I saved the best for last. This one is my Paradoxa. So I saw this, I don't remember where, I probably saw it on Instagram or something, and I loved the shape of it. So I found a cutting on Etsy, and this section here is all new growth. I've had this about since January. So it's not a super fast grower for me yet, but really easy to take care of so far. I just make sure when it dries out, I water it, keep it in the barky mix like I mentioned, and then cross my fingers. So, and then the final plant in this window here is this Syngonium. Now this could just be a Syngonium that's really mature because it's got the lobed leaves. But I was kind of hoping that it was a tri-leaf wonder because that kind of like, then I would know for sure what it was. So yeah, I got this at a yard sale last summer. It was a townwide yard sale, and there was a lady kind of like in the pavilion area where everybody was grouped, and she had this and a pothos. And when I saw this and I saw the leaves, it was really exciting because it was something I had never seen before. And when you're into plants and you find something kind of new that you get to research, that's like the best part. So, what, I mean, look at this guy. This guy's starting to get the extra lobes up top even. So this one anyways, it came in a basket, and it was a basket I could tell that she had kept outside because there was acorns and like little like other stuff in it. So I basically took the whole plant apart, did cuttings, and took it from a vining Syngonium back into a potted one because I kind of wanted the smaller form for here. So anyways, but this one grows really well for me. And then you've probably noticed that there is an empty spot. And that is because my goldfish plant, I discovered scale on it. So right now it's being quarantined over here and I'm doing treatments. So right now what I do, I've been manually removing them using Q-tips, and I put a systemic in which will help cut back on them, but that doesn't work instantly. That takes some time. And also never do that if you're going to put the plant outside because it will harm like bees and other pollinators. So only if it's going to be an indoor strictly only plant. Also, it will make the leaves of a plant that was non-toxic toxic to pets. So I mean, I keep all my plants out of Jordan's reach, but you know, just some things to know. So I do that, and I have some spinosad and some insecticidal soap on the way. I like to alternate using sprays so they don't get used to any one thing. And then anytime you spray it, don't put it back in the sun for like, I usually wait a day. But for now, this guy is not going in the sun because he's quarantined away from everyone else. So we're going to try and get this under control, and then hopefully he'll be able to go back in the window eventually. We'll go in the bathroom last, but for now, we're in this section of the kitchen where I have my propagation wall. So this is kind of just a fun area where there is not enough light to grow any plants really, but propagations seem to do okay. So I have all kinds of different things going at any time. You can change them up. And because they're picture ledges, they're just IKEA picture ledges, I could also put in like artwork or little like smaller knickknacks if I wanted to. But right now I'm really just enjoying having all the different plants. And then I do have a few in this window. And mainly low light ones down here. So I've got the Philodendron Brazil, the Neon Pothos, and then another Scindapsus. This one actually needs to be tidied up a little bit. But they seem to be doing okay. Up here I have some Hoya, and I know that this isn't the ideal location for that guy at least. And he's either a Shepherdii or a Wayettii. He's the one with like the green bean leaves. So he's doing okay there. You can see he's putting out some, I can't think of the word off the top of my head right now. He's putting out some vines anyways, tendrils. I think that's what I was looking for. No leaves on him yet. So, you know. And this one here is just, I don't know, I put it here short of throwing it out. I watch all these videos and everybody's like, oh, the Hoya lacanosa is like the easiest one. It does so great for me. This plant has been the bane of my existence. I bought it and I had it in like a southern southeastern type window. So it would get really good sun. And it went from being one of those large hanging baskets like you'd get at Lowe's, you guys know the size, to this is all that's left. And I mean, that's over the period of like a year or so. It would just, each branch would slowly yellow and get like mushy and fall off. And it wasn't being overwatered. So maybe I got a bad one, but I have a really hard time figuring this guy out. So my final thing was maybe it's just too much light. Maybe he's just baking because he does have thinner leaves than some of the other Hoyas. So I'm putting it in less light. It's been here probably for the better part of like 8 months. And I mean, there's a little bit of growth, but it's just, I don't know. I don't want to throw it out because I don't want to give up, but I also am not giving it like prime real estate in my best windows because, I don't know, he drives me crazy. So let's go to the bathroom now. And this is the section where I have my plants in here. This is a west window. I'm going to turn the light on and it's going to turn on the fan, so you'll hear that in a second. But this is a west window, so it gets really good light, but that part down there is frosted, so the top plants get a lot, the bottom plants get kind of like a filtered. So this here is my philodendron, and this is just the basic heartleaf one, but this is one of my favorite plants where if I had to choose maybe like 5 and I had to like, I don't know if you guys watch or listen to On the Ledge where Jane Perone has that questionnaire, like if there was a fire and you had to grab one plant, this would be one of the ones I would go for because I got it as a cutting from my grandmother. So she has a bunch of plants on her back porch and she told me if I wanted any of them I could take one or whatever. So this one was like a really long vine, probably 6 foot, like 1 or 2 6-foot sections, and I wanted it to be a full pot, so I started it from that section and propagated, and like a year later I'm finally at this point. So this plant is really special to me. And then here is kind of like my asparagus fern section. So I got this one back in December, I believe it was December or January, and because I wanted something in here that was green and I wanted something a little bit kind of fluffy and ethereal looking. And I went with this guy, and this is, I believe it was called the Ming fern. And this one has been doing so good as long as you don't let them dry out. I have not had a ton of leaf droppage or anything. That was my main concern, is that it's going to be all over the place. But as long as you don't let it dry out, it seems to be doing fine. So recently I added this one in, and this is the foxtail fern. I've got some begonia maculata whitey cuttings, and I started that from like a single leaf, and those ones in the back are new. This one is getting kind of crinkly, but I just thought that that was kind of like a nice, like the sharp leaf shapes as opposed to the fluffy ferns. And then the last one in here is this Alocasia poly. This is my 3rd time trying this plant. The other 2, I believe I was underwatering them, so this one I'm going to give a go. And I'm also, this is one of those plants that I watch really close because I've heard that they're like notorious for spider mites and thrips, and I can't even imagine trying to treat spider mites on one of these guys. So I kind of try and look. It's only 3 or 4 small leaves, so right now it's really easy to just kind of flip them over and look each day at the leaves as I'm in here, because it's right by like where I'd put on my perfume or stuff, so it takes a few seconds literally to do it. And then I also have, like I mentioned, some spinosad on the way, which I think will be a nice preventative, maybe if I do it weekly or bi-weekly, like every other week, just to kind of prevent that from happening. And we'll see if I can keep this guy alive. And then I have them sitting in a pebble tray, and I'm just trying to see if I can whiten this up. The white balance on this is really off. But basically, underneath of here, you can see the plastic in the edge. This is just a plastic saucer from Home Depot. I picked the biggest size that I could. And then I have the tray that is a wicker tray that is about the same size. I put the plastic tray inside, filled it with gravel or rocks. I wanted white rocks so that it'd be kind of minimal and it would go nice with like the wicker look, and then just filled it with water. So this guy's got his own saucer, he's fine, but for the ones like this, you can see I put little saucers underneath to kind of balance and keep them out, because you don't want them to soak up the water. You'd rot the roots, but you do want the water from the tray to kind of evaporate and raise humidity. And so far, for that fern in the back, it's been working wonderful. So I want to thank you guys for sticking with this plant tour. If you've done parts 1 and 2 and now part 3, you guys rock. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.